I have everything figured out. I am living the life. Clock it!
The loudest voices in every generation are rarely the wisest. Some people become famous for saying the wrong things so confidently that others begin to believe them. They make rebellion look glamorous, pride look powerful, and carelessness look like freedom. But every trend has an expiration date. Every applause eventually becomes silence. And when the lights go out, a person is left alone with the life they built. This is the story of a young woman who believed that beauty was enough, money was forever, and God could wait. Her name was Gina. At just 25 years old, Gina was everything social media celebrated. She was stunning, wealthy, fashionable, and impossible to ignore. Her wardrobe was filled with designer dresses. Her closet displayed shoes most people only dreamed of owning. Expensive perfumes lined her shelves. Jewelry sparkled from every corner of her room. The newest phones, luxury handbags, vacations, parties, and exclusive restaurants were simply part of her everyday life. Wherever Gina appeared, cameras followed. People admired her confidence. Young girls wanted to become her. Brands wanted to work with her. Men competed for her attention. To the world, she looked like success. But there was one thing Gina could not stand: Christians, especially young Christian women. Whenever she saw ladies dressed modestly carrying their Bibles to church, she would laugh. Whenever she heard someone talk about purity, holiness, prayer, or serving God, she rolled her eyes. "If your God is so good," she would say, "why are you living such a boring life?" She loved calling herself a big girl. "A real woman enjoys life," she would boast. "We wear what we want. We spend what we want. We date whoever we want. We go wherever we want. We don't let religion control us." And then came her favorite phrase, "Clock it." It became her signature response. One Saturday afternoon, she met 3 young Christian ladies outside a shopping mall. They were laughing together after finishing an outreach program. Their clothes were simple but elegant. Their joy was genuine. One of them smiled warmly. "Gina, we've been praying for you. Why don't you join us in church tomorrow? We would love to have you." Gina burst into laughter so loudly that people nearby turned to look. "Church!" She adjusted her expensive sunglasses. "You girls are wasting your youth." The ladies exchanged quiet glances but remained calm. Another one said softly, "Money is good, but it cannot replace peace." Gina clapped sarcastically. "Clock it," she pointed toward the luxury car parked behind her. "Can your church buy me this?" Silence, she continued. "Can your Bible pay for my vacations? Clock it. Can prayer buy designer bags? Clock it. You girls should stop dressing like grandmothers and start enjoying life." Without waiting for another word, she entered her sports car and sped away, music blasting through the windows. The Christian ladies simply looked at one another. One of them quietly whispered, "Father, please have mercy on her. Help her discover that your love is greater than everything this world offers." They walked away. Gina never knew they were praying instead of arguing. Weeks became months. Her online influence exploded. Millions watched every post she uploaded. Every video attracted thousands of comments. People copied her fashion, copied her speech, copied her attitude. Even young girls started using her favorite expression, "Clock it," whenever parents corrected them. "Clock it," whenever teachers advised them. "Clock it," whenever pastors preached. "Clock it." Without realizing it, Gina had become more than an influencer. She was influencing hearts away from wisdom. The attention became addictive. Every day required something bigger, more expensive clothes, more revealing outfits, more controversial videos, more wild parties, more alcohol, more applause, because yesterday's excitement quickly became today's boredom. No matter how much she gained, she always needed more. She laughed louder, spent faster, partied harder. Yet every night when the cameras were off and the makeup was washed away, silence filled her luxurious apartment. She hated that silence, because deep inside, questions she refused to answer began whispering to her heart. Why do I still feel empty? Why does success not satisfy me anymore? Why am I afraid to be alone? Instead of listening, she drowned those questions with another party, another vacation, another shopping spree, another expensive purchase, another viral video, another distraction. One evening, Gina was invited to the birthday celebration of another wealthy influencer. The event was extravagant beyond imagination. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Celebrities filled the room. Music shook the walls. Cameras flashed endlessly. Everyone looked happy. Or at least they pretended to. Gina stood in the center of the room wearing a sparkling designer gown worth more than some families earned in years. People surrounded her. "Gina, take a picture with me. We love you. You are goals." She smiled for every camera. Inside, however, something felt strangely different. A sudden dizziness swept over her. She blinked. The room spun. She grabbed the edge of a nearby table. Someone laughed, thinking she was joking. Then her vision blurred. The music sounded distant. Her breathing became heavy. For the first time in years, Gina felt powerless. The woman who believed money could solve everything suddenly realized that not every battle could be won with wealth. As the room continued spinning around her, one terrifying thought echoed inside her mind. What is happening to me? And for the first time since anyone could remember, Gina had no clever reply, no sarcastic smile, no audience to impress, no confidence left, only fear. The same young woman who always said, "Clock it," was about to discover that life has a way of stopping every proud heart long enough to make it listen. The room erupted into panic. "Gina, someone call an ambulance." "She's not responding." The music stopped. The laughter disappeared. The same people who had been fighting to take selfies with her were now stepping backward in fear. Some quietly pulled out their phones, not to help, but to record what was happening. Within minutes, Gina was rushed to the hospital. Doctors surrounded her. Machines beeped constantly. Tests were run one after another. For days, no one could give her a clear answer. Her body was growing weaker. Her energy vanished. The glamorous influencer who barely spent a day without posting online had disappeared completely. Her followers noticed. "Where is Gina? Why hasn't she posted? Is she okay?" Rumors spread across social media. Some said she had traveled abroad. Others claimed she was hiding after cosmetic surgery. No one knew the truth. The truth was far more painful. She was lying on a hospital bed, too weak to even lift her phone. For the first time in years, she looked into a mirror without makeup. The expensive wigs, the designer clothes, the jewelry. None of them mattered anymore. Every morning she woke up hoping to feel better. Every night she cried herself to sleep. Her wealth disappeared faster than she ever imagined. Specialists, private hospitals, experimental treatments, travel expenses, luxury insurance that refused to cover everything. The millions she once spent carelessly now vanished paying bills she never imagined she would face. One afternoon, her manager walked into her hospital room with tears in his eyes. "Gina," she looked up weakly, "we've lost almost all of your endorsement contracts." Her heart sank. "The companies said you've been inactive for too long." He lowered his head. "Your followers are leaving." Another painful silence filled the room. He continued, "The house by the beach has been sold. The sports car has been repossessed. Your investments failed. We've had to let most of your staff go." Every sentence felt like another piece of her world collapsing. She remembered laughing at those Christian ladies. She remembered mocking prayer. She remembered shouting, "Clock it." Now the same mouth that mocked others could barely whisper. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. Her luxurious apartment was gone. Her expensive lifestyle had vanished. Most of the friends who used to surround her every weekend had disappeared. The people who once called her queen no longer answered her calls. One evening she scrolled through her contacts. Dozens of names, hundreds of conversations. She called one friend, no answer. Another, voicemail. Another, blocked. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "So this is what I meant to them," she whispered. "They only loved what I had." She closed her eyes. For the first time, she realized she had built her life on applause instead of truth. Then there was a gentle knock on the hospital door. She expected another doctor. Instead, standing quietly at the entrance were the same three young Christian women she had mocked months before. One carried a small bag of fruit. Another held a bouquet of simple flowers. The third was carrying a Bible. Gina quickly turned her face away, ashamed. "I don't deserve to see them." One of the ladies walked closer and smiled gently. "We heard you weren't well." Gina couldn't look into her eyes. I'm sorry." The words were barely audible. Another lady pulled a chair beside the bed. "You don't have to apologize to us. We came because Jesus teaches us to love even those who have hurt us." Those words broke something inside Gina. She burst into tears, real tears, not the tears she cried for online sympathy, not tears for attention. These were tears from a heart that had finally become honest. "I laughed at all of you. I insulted you. I called your lives boring. I thought I was better than you." The ladies quietly listened. "I had everything," Gina sobbed, "and now I've lost almost everything." One of them gently held her trembling hand. "Gina, God has not stopped loving you." Another opened her Bible and read softly, Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord she shall be praised. Proverbs 31:30. The room became silent. Those words echoed through Gina's heart. For years she had built her identity on charm, on beauty, on popularity, on expensive things. Yet everything she trusted had disappeared almost overnight. But this verse spoke about something no sickness, no financial loss, and no passing trend could ever take away, a heart that reveres God. The lasting beauty of the Proverbs 31 woman flows from her relationship with the Lord, not from outward appearance or status. One of the young women looked at her with compassion. Gina, would you like to come to church with us when you're strong enough? Months earlier, she would have laughed, she would have shouted, "Clock it!" But this time, no laughter came, only tears. She nodded slowly. Yes, I don't know much about God. I don't even know how to pray. But if he can still accept someone like me, I want to know him. The three ladies smiled. They joined hands around Gina's bed. There was no shouting, no performance, no condemnation. Only a simple prayer asking God to draw Gina close to himself, to give her strength, wisdom, and hope, and to transform her heart. As they prayed, something inside Gina began to change. Not because every problem disappeared instantly. Not because all her money returned. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because for the first time in her life, she stopped trusting in wealth, stopped trusting in fame, stopped trusting in beauty, and began searching for the one she had spent years mocking. She had entered that hospital believing she had lost everything. She was about to discover that sometimes God allows us to lose what cannot last so that we finally seek what lasts forever. The following Sunday, Gina stood outside the church doors with trembling hands. She almost turned back. What if they recognize me? What if they remember everything I said? What if they laugh at me the way I laughed at them? Her heart pounded. The same woman who once walked confidently into exclusive parties was now afraid to walk into the house of God. Before she could leave, she heard a familiar voice. Gina! She turned around. It was the same three young women. Instead of judging her, they smiled. One of them wrapped her in a warm hug. We've been waiting for you. Those simple words broke the last wall around Gina's heart. She expected rejection. Instead, she found love. As she entered the sanctuary, the worship had already begun. Voices filled the room. Hands were lifted toward heaven. People weren't dressed to compete with one another. No one cared who wore the most expensive shoes. No one was trying to impress anyone. For the first time in her life, Gina saw people who looked genuinely happy without pretending. As the choir sang about the goodness of God, tears rolled down her cheeks. She remembered every moment she had mocked Christians. She remembered shouting, "Clock it!" Now every word echoed back into her heart like an accusation. When the pastor began preaching, it felt as though every sentence was directed at her. He spoke about the prodigal son, a young man who thought life outside his father's house would satisfy him. He chased pleasure. He wasted everything. He lost everything. Yet when he returned, his father welcomed him with open arms. Gina couldn't stop crying. She realized something. She wasn't just sick physically. She had been sick spiritually for years. When the pastor invited anyone who wanted to surrender their life to Christ to come forward, Gina remained frozen. Fear whispered inside her. What will people say? Then another voice, quieter but stronger, reminded her. You've spent your whole life worrying about people's opinions. Today, choose God. Slowly, she stood. Every step toward the altar felt heavier than the last. Before reaching the front, she collapsed onto her knees. Her tears soaked the floor. I've been running from you. I thought money could save me. I thought fame would complete me. I mocked your children. I laughed at your name. I was proud. I was selfish. I was empty. Lord, if you can still use someone like me. My life belongs to you. The church became silent. Some people prayed quietly. Others wept with her. No one condemned her. That morning, Gina experienced something she had never been able to buy, peace. Not the kind that comes from luxury, not the kind that comes from popularity. The peace that comes from knowing you have been forgiven. Over the following months, Gina's life changed in ways no one expected. She no longer woke up wondering how to become more famous. She woke up asking, Lord, what would you have me do today? The designer outfits that once filled her closet no longer defined her identity. She still dressed neatly and beautifully, but with modesty and confidence that came from within, not from seeking attention. The expensive jewelry she once collected to impress others was quietly sold. With part of the money she had left, she began helping struggling widows, paying school fees for children, and buying food for families who had nothing. The same hands that once held shopping bags every weekend were now carrying food parcels to people in need. One afternoon, one of the young Christian women smiled and asked, "Do you remember what you used to say?" Gina laughed softly. "Oh, I remember," they both smiled. "But I've retired that word forever." Months later, Gina received an unexpected invitation. A television station wanted to interview her. Social media exploded. "Gina is back. She's making a comeback." Everyone expected the glamorous influencer they once knew. When the cameras began rolling, the interviewer smiled. "Gina, people want to know your secret. You lost your wealth. You disappeared. You came back. What's different now?" The entire studio became quiet. Millions watched the live broadcast. Gina smiled gently. "My greatest achievement isn't that people know my name. My greatest achievement is that God knows my heart." The interviewer looked surprised. "What do you mean?" Gina continued. "I spent years building a life that looked beautiful on the outside while falling apart on the inside. I believed beauty was enough. I believed money could protect me. I believed popularity was success. I was wrong." She paused. "The richest woman is not the one with the biggest closet. The most beautiful woman is not the one with the most followers. The strongest woman is the one who fears the Lord." The studio fell completely silent. Then she opened the small Bible resting on her lap. With a smile, she read aloud, "Who can find a virtuous woman, for her price is far above rubies." Then she continued, "Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. But a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised." She closed the Bible. "I used to chase applause. Now I want to live a life that honors God." That interview spread across the country, but this time, people weren't copying her clothes, they weren't copying her makeup, they weren't repeating, "Clock it." Instead, young women began opening their Bibles. Some returned to church. Others reconciled with their families. Many realized that becoming a Proverbs 31 woman was never about being perfect. It was about building a life on wisdom, diligence, compassion, integrity, and above all, the fear of the Lord, the foundation of lasting beauty and character. Gina smiled every time she heard those testimonies, because she finally understood something that had taken losing almost everything to learn. The greatest glow-up is not changing your appearance. It is allowing God to transform your heart. 3 years later, if someone had met Gina for the first time, they would never have believed she was once the same woman who mocked Christians and proudly shouted, "Clock it!" She still smiled. She still carried herself with confidence. She still dressed beautifully, but now her beauty came from a peaceful heart instead of a prideful one. She was no longer known as the influencer who promoted extravagant living. She had become a mentor to young women. Every Saturday afternoon, dozens of ladies gathered in a small church hall just to hear her speak. Some came with broken hearts. Some came addicted to social media validation. Some came believing that beauty, money, and attention were the only things that mattered. Every one of them saw a part of their old selves in Gina's story. One afternoon, a young lady named Vanessa stood up during one of the meetings. She was dressed exactly the way Gina used to dress years ago. Her words shocked everyone. "Gina, I used to laugh at Christians because of you. I started partying because of you. I stopped going to church because I wanted your lifestyle." Tears filled her eyes. "But after watching your testimony, I gave my life back to Christ." The room became silent. Gina lowered her head and quietly wiped away a tear. Years ago, she had unknowingly led people away from God. Now, by God's grace, she was leading people back to Him. She smiled gently and replied, "Never follow a person. Follow Christ. People will fail you. Money will disappear. Beauty will fade. But Jesus never changes." The ladies applauded not because of Gina, but because they could see what God had done in her life. Then Gina walked to the front of the room and opened her Bible. "There was a time," she said, "when I thought being a powerful woman meant having expensive clothes, luxury cars, followers, and influence. I believed confidence came from attention. I believed success came from showing off. I believed beauty was enough. I was completely wrong." She lifted her Bible. "The woman I wanted to become was celebrated by the world. But the woman God wanted me to become was described thousands of years ago." She turned to Proverbs 31. "The Proverbs 31 woman is not perfect. She is purposeful. She is not famous because of what she owns. She is honored because of who she is." She began explaining the passage. "A Proverbs 31 woman fears the Lord." She read, "Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised." Proverbs 31:30. She looked around the room. This is the foundation. If a woman has beauty without God, beauty will eventually fade. If she has money without God, money can disappear. If she has influence without God, people will move on. But a woman who fears the Lord builds her life on something eternal, she continued. A Proverbs 31 woman is trustworthy, she read. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. Proverbs 31:11. Whether she is single or married, she is a woman of integrity. Her words can be trusted, her actions match her character. She turned another page. A Proverbs 31 woman is hardworking, she read. She seeketh wool and flax and worketh willingly with her hands. Proverbs 31:13. She doesn't sit around waiting for life to happen. She uses her gifts, she serves, she learns, she grows, she works with excellence because she knows she is serving God. Another verse. She is wise with her decisions, she read. She considereth a field and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planteth a vineyard. Proverbs 31:16. This woman thinks before she acts. She is not controlled by impulse or trends. She plans wisely and manages what God has entrusted to her. These verses portray a woman who is diligent, resourceful, and capable, showing wisdom in both her household and her work. She smiled. A Proverbs 31 woman is compassionate, she read. She stretcheth out her hand to the poor, yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. Proverbs 31:20. She doesn't live only for herself. She notices people. She gives. She serves. She loves. Then she continued. A Proverbs 31 woman speaks with wisdom, she read. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. Proverbs 31:26. Listen carefully. You can always recognize a godly woman by the way she speaks. She doesn't use her words to destroy. She doesn't mock people. She doesn't humiliate others. Her words heal. They encourage. They build. Finally, Gina closed her Bible. She smiled. The world taught me to say, clock it. But Jesus taught me something better. Pray first. Forgive quickly. Walk humbly. Serve faithfully. Love deeply. Fear the Lord. She paused as tears filled her eyes. I lost my wealth. I lost my fame. I lost almost everything. But looking back today, I realize I never truly lost. I simply exchanged temporary treasures for eternal ones. The room erupted in applause. Not because Gina had become rich again. Not because she had become famous again. But because everyone could see that God had transformed her heart. From that day forward, whenever someone tried to pressure the young women in that church to follow the world's trends, they would smile and remember Gina's testimony. They no longer wanted the clock-it lifestyle. They wanted a life that honored Christ. Because they had learned one unforgettable truth. The loudest woman in the room is not always the strongest. The richest woman is not always the happiest. The most beautiful woman is not the one with the most followers. The most beautiful woman is the one whose heart belongs completely to God. And that is the woman whose legacy will never fade. If this story spoke to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a sister, a daughter, or a friend who needs this reminder today. And if you desire to become the woman God created you to be, begin by seeking Him daily. The journey to becoming a Proverbs 31 woman doesn't start with changing your wardrobe. It starts with surrendering your heart to God. If you believe that true beauty begins with the fear of the Lord, type, I choose God's way in the comments. Subscribe for more Christ-centered stories, and remember, the greatest transformation isn't changing your image. It's allowing God to transform your life.